Ellis from Left 4 Dead 2, and there's no way you dressed as a teenager as him. I wrote him last year. I'm not getting old. I'm not. Okay, but Ellis is a great example of working with an actor to create a character. And with that, we had started. So when we cast people, right, we're casting 4 people at one time, and we're sending out these casting sheets, which are like a picture of the character, a monologue so that they can have some acting chops, and then it's some barks, just make sure they can yell and scream and whatever. And so Eric got it the first time, and we were actually working with David Simon from The Wire's casting agent, hence the 2 of the hires, right? And Eric Layden came back. He worked with Eric Layden, Generation Kill. It was really good. But it came back and it was really Southern. He was too deep Southern. He was like almost playing it like as a caricature, not a person. But there was something about his voice and something about his delivery that I liked, and I liked it over the other ones that got it closer. I'll tell you what, if you say like an old Western dude, you're gonna get people doing the prospector. Like there's just some tropes people fall in, and when you say Southern, there's a little bit of a trope there. And so then I reached back out, which is a rarity because normally you have to go through so many of these. You probably go through like 100 of them, but there's something about his voice that I like. So I said, hey, can we reach back out and ask for a reread, but just reread it in his voice. Don't do just reread it in his voice. And he did. I'm like, okay, we can work with that and give it something. And then I remember we talked like during the first recording session, because the first recording session is you just have a bunch of stuff that needs to get done. You have a bunch of the like, there's stairs over there kind of stuff, right? And you just have a couple of things that you're testing with them to see what their personality is like and how can you work with that and how can you draw it out. And the first half hour is just often just saying like one line, and then we talk about it. Like we talk about what the goals are and how to, the whole process of it, right? This is the very first recording session. You've got this giant script you know you're not going to get through, but just in case. And we took probably even for like 45 minutes on that first line, and he's decided that we should move it into Texas more and kind of the hills of Texas. And we talked a lot about that. I'm like, I'm familiar with there's a good accent book I have. I should have brought it up. But familiar with that, we can go with that. And he's like, yeah, this is more natural for me, and which is good, right? Because you want the character to be able to come back to it, because they're going to come back to it 4 or 5 times over the course of like half a year. And so they need to be able to come back to the character, and he can come back to this character then. And so then after that, if I would write stuff, he would either interpret it, he would ad-lib on top of it, or he would sometimes be like, yeah, that doesn't quite fit, let's talk about that. And then we would talk about that. And it actually helped me as a writer. And so, SAG-AFTRA is on strike right now for writing for video games. And I'll tell you what, AI is never going to have that back and forth with you. Ellis would not be nearly as good of a character if it was just voiced by AI. That actor came and delivered and did a great job on it is why it was such a good character. And Eric actually then went on to do some other video games, some other TV shows. He's I think the only actor I ever saw at E3. So he's like a fan of all of it, and he's just a really, really nice person as well, and just a really, really hard worker. Like he took it serious. He took it serious where some people don't take voice acting for games seriously. He took it super serious, and he took it as serious as any of the TV roles he had, which ended up being kind of funny because, look, we don't really start writing the characters till May or June. And we have to finish them by October. That's a lot of writing. I'm also hooking up the audio, designing the game, writing the game, talking with the team, and traveling and doing press. And it ends up, I write a lot of this in hotel rooms, because hotel rooms have 2 things that make writing really helpful. They have an entire lack of distraction, and they have beer. And back then I used to drink when I wrote. I stopped doing that at some point in Portal 2. But like, because bad habit. But it ends up, I would like get scripts to them the day before recording session. But Eric and this crew for Left 4 Dead 2 were professionals, and they're like, no, we need a couple days because we actually read these scripts. And going in and seeing like Rochelle having the script she'd all mark it up and have questions on things before we even got there and stuff. And that's why her later sessions are way better than her early sessions, right? Some of it's my fault. But for Eric in particular, he was the first one who was like, no, dude, you gotta get to this earlier. I'm gonna go through this and then we're gonna talk about it. And then we would start a session. We would talk about the feedback on the script, or sometimes we would just go through and then talk about it during the time. But he made the character. He made it better. I love the character we got out of that, and I'm happy with all the writing I did for it. But I know deep down, like that character would not be nearly as great if it wasn't for his input in it. And in fact, like as I think of little things, I've been talking about doing this little side thing, and I could voice it myself because it's gonna be that small of a little side thing. But I'm not a good actor. Even though I have a degree in theater, it is not in the acting part of it. And I want to have an actor do it, even though everything else is just done by me. Because I think actors bring so much to the role. And that is just a really great example. Because Ellis is a complicated character in a way, right? Because he makes jokes, but he's not making jokes, right? So it's often like I have a group of friends who have to talk in front of their family about stuff when we were growing up. They're talking about drugs and stuff. So burger meant a lot of things. Burger could mean burger, burger could mean beer, burger could mean other things. You knew how they said it, and they could say it in front of each other. And Ellis has a little of that, right? Like sometimes when he's asking Nick a question, he's not asking him a question. The question's making fun out of Nick, and it's going from there, right? And so it's that, like, I'm not going to show you how smart I am, but I am not at all stupid or uninformed about things, right? Where, like in the Anacrusis, Liu's a character who's read about these things but doesn't know about them. And so she has a different excitement and a different like thrill of wanting to try them, right? But they both have like, if you had a barrel on the top of a hill and said you want to go inside this barrel and see what it's like rolling down, they're both going to say yes, but they're going to say yes for different reasons, right? And so that character, I think, just gets nailed by Eric in such a beautiful way that you get that subtlety, and we're able to do these jokes and this kind of back and forth with him and Nick in particular that I think works really, really well. I think so. I guess I'm bragging about myself here, but I truly, truly like Ellis. And then, some of the personal stuff of bringing in there of like being a big Misfits fan and stuff and knowing some of the lyrics was just something that I just equated to me and said, hey, we're gonna have him do this stuff. I think it works.